Hey there, and welcome back to the Dupe Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. Instead of analyzing a broad trend, we're peeling back the layers of just one single document. But it's incredibly dense and ultimately pretty fascinating. Imagine a massive government contract, one that's going to shape health and medical research for years. That's what we're digging into.
Exactly. We're going to unpack an amendment to a major solicitation. It's specifically for something called Omnibus the Fee, Military Medical Research and Development.
Omnibus the fee. Okay.
And yeah, this isn't just about, big dollar figures. It's really about the very specific rules, the expectations that govern how significant scientific work actually gets funded and performed by the government.
Right. So our mission today is basically to cut through all that jargon, all that complexity, and pull out the most important nuggets for you, the listener. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding a really complex piece of the federal acquisition puzzle.
And hopefully we'll uncover some surprising facts, some insights you probably won't hear anywhere else.
Okay, let's unpack this. First off, Omnibus the Fifth. What exactly is this contract? And, why should we care? Why is it such a big deal in military medical research?
All right, so at its core, Omnibus the Fifth is what's called an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. It's also a multiple award contract.
Okay, IDIQ, multiple award. Break that down a bit.
Yeah, so what that basically means is the government isn't saying we need exactly this much research right now. It's more like we know we'll need an indefinite amount of research services over time.
Ah, okay.
And we want a pre-approved list of multiple companies or institutions ready to do the work when we place specific orders. So it's like a framework.
Gotcha. Like a preferred vendor list, but for massive research projects.
Exactly. And its main purpose is providing a really broad range of health-related R&D, plus the crucial support services that go with it. And this is all for the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, and the military healthcare system, the MHS.
Okay. So big scope, important clients.
Definitely. And for you, if you're tracking the details, the main classification code here is NAICS 541714.
NAICS 541701 fee.
Right. That covers research and development in biotechnology, but it explicitly excludes nanobiotechnology.
Mm.
The small business size standard for this code is 1,000 employees.
1,000 employees. Okay. That's a fairly large small business in some contexts.
It is for R&D, yeah. And the work itself, the services, they can fall under various product service codes, PSCs. Think basic research, applied research, experimental development.
So the whole R&D life cycle, basically.
Pretty much. Even R&D administrative costs and major equipment or facilities fall under it.
Yeah.
And an interesting point, even if the main system only lets you pick one PSC when setting things up, individual task orders issued later can use whatever PSC is actually most appropriate for that specific piece of work. So there's flexibility there.
Okay, that makes sense. So who is the government actually trying to get involved here? Are they just looking for big defense contractors or...
No, and that's what's quite interesting. They explicitly encourage a really diverse group to bid as prime contractors. We're talking institutions of higher education, including historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah. Also, other nonprofit research institutions, of course, industrial research labs. It really shows they want a collaborative approach, bringing in expertise from, all corners to advance military medicine.
So academia, nonprofits, industry, all potentially playing lead roles.
Exactly. Now, one really important thing to keep in mind, some of this research, it might be classified for national security reasons. And critically, these contracts are governed by the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the FAR. They're not grants.
Right. You mentioned that earlier. Why is the FIR distinction so crucial?
Because the rules are just different. FAR is designed for buying goods and services. It's much more structured, more compliance-focused than typical research grants. So contractors have to deal with things like the NIS-POM, which governs classified information, or potentially the HIPAA privacy rule for patient data, in a way that grant recipients might not. It's a stricter environment.
Okay, stricter rules, FR-based. So beyond just being a funding vehicle, what's the unique value Omnibus the UV brings to the table for the research community? What makes it stand out?
Well, I think a key part of its value is how it facilitates both the actual research and the support needed to translate that research into outcomes, often directly within military hospitals or clinics.
Ah, so it bridges the gap between the lab and the bedside, so to speak.
In a way, yes. It includes support for things like clinical regulatory processes, translational science, technology transfer. It's really set up to encourage different fields and different types of organizations to work together on solving complex problems.
That makes the collaborative push make even more sense.
Right.
Okay, so you've painted a clear picture of the what and why. Now, let's get into the how. If a company or university wants a piece of this action, getting a contract involves putting together a proposal, and this is where it gets, well, intense. You mentioned 5 volumes.
Yes, it's definitely a rigorous process, very structured. They break the proposal down into 5 distinct volumes to cover everything.
Okay, lay them out for us. Volume 1.
Volume 1 is proposal documentation. This is mostly administrative stuff, company info, signing the contract form itself. And crucially, this volume is unlimited in pages.
Unlimited. Okay, Volume 2.
Volume 2 is technical, specifically the proficiency demonstration. This is where you show you can do the work. And here, there are strict page limits. Just 2 pages per part of that demonstration.
Only 2 pages. Wow.
Yeah, very concise. Though the self-scoring worksheet that goes with it, that doesn't count against the limit.
Okay, we'll need to unpack that proficiency demonstration later. What's Volume 3?
Volume 3 is past performance. Again, page limits here. 5 pages for describing your team and 5 pages per reference for their info form.
But, I sense a but.
But the organizational change history, sometimes called a roadmap showing mergers or acquisitions, that part has unlimited pages.
Interesting. Volume 4.
Volume 4 is the small business participation commitment. There's a 20-page limit for the main commitment document.
Okay.
But the actual small business subcontracting plan that large businesses submit, unlimited pages.
Got it. And finally, Volume V.
Volume V is price. And this one, no page limits at all.
Okay, so some tight limits, some unlimited. Seems designed to focus detail in specific areas.
Exactly.
And this is all submitted electronically, you said. No more truckloads of binders.
Precisely. Everything goes through the Procurement Integrated Enterprise Environment, PIE. Specifically the solicitation module within PIE.
PIE, right.
It's a dedicated, secure government portal. No hard copies, no physical models, no mock-ups, and absolutely no video files. They're very clear on that.
It really shows how much federal contracting has shifted to digital precision, doesn't it? Everything tracked, standardized.
Absolutely. It ensures a clear, auditable trail for every single submission.
You mentioned how specific they are about page counts, like what's excluded. What's the strategy behind excluding things like tables of contents or letters of commitment?
That's a really astute observation. It signals where the government wants the real substance. By excluding things like cover pages, glossaries, teaming agreements, the price spreadsheet, that self-scoring worksheet, they're telling bidders, don't waste your limited narrative pages on boilerplate or supporting docs.
Focus the key pages on the core arguments, the why us.
Exactly. It forces clarity and conciseness in the technical and past performance sections, pushing offerers to distill their unique value, not just pad the proposal. It's about evaluating substance over sheer bulk. And the core instruction is clear. Proposals must be complete. They have to respond directly to every requirement and provide enough detail for a proper evaluation.
And bidders shouldn't assume the government knows them.
Absolutely not. Assume zero prior knowledge. You can't just reference your website or, worse, just rephrase the government's own requirements back at them. You have to explain your solution, your capabilities.
Okay, so that sets the stage for the proposal itself. A lot of structure, specific focuses. Now let's dive into Volume 2, that technical proficiency piece. How do companies actually prove they can do this specialized work? What is this proficiency demonstration?
Right, the proficiency demonstration in Volume 2, it's absolutely critical. This is the offerer's main chance to describe their expertise within a specific market segment they're bidding on. It's broken into 3 parts.
3 parts, okay.
Part A is core competencies. Here, the offerer identifies their unique strengths relevant to Omnibus the Field, and crucially, how those strengths add value to specific program areas defined in the solicitation.
So not just we're good at research, but we excel at infectious disease research, which maps to program area XYZ.
Exactly. For example, maybe expertise in infectious disease research that aligns with, say, Proficiency Area 60 Title 21 requirements in the solicitation. It has to be specific.
Okay, Part B.
Part B is eligibility criteria. This describes the resources, the qualifications, the infrastructure needed to deliver on those core competencies you just claimed.
Ah, so the how.
Yes.
Yeah.
Using that infectious disease example, this might mean detailing that the company has, say, an HHS-certified federal-wide assurance for human subjects research. maybe access to a BSL-4 lab.
Biosafety level 4, high containment. Okay.
Right. And maybe personnel skilled in specific things like epidemiology or phlebotomy. It's the tangible proof of capability.
Makes sense. And part C.
Part C is demonstrative experience and personnel.
Mm.
This is where you provide concrete examples, real projects the company has done, and specific people who meet those eligibility criteria from Part B.
So connecting the dots.
Precisely. If your core competency is, say, running clinical trials, you'd provide examples of past trials maybe for the CDC in vaccine development, and you'd name key personnel, like a lead scientist, and provide relevant extracts from their resume.
Extracts, not the whole CV.
Right. Again, focusing the detail. Show the specific experience that proves they meet the criteria. Don't just attach a 20-page resume.
That's really targeted. And you mentioned a self-scoring worksheet. How does that fit in? They score themselves.
Yes, they do. Offers have to complete this worksheet covering all the proficiency areas within the market segment they're proposing for. They assign themselves a score for each area, from 0, which means lowest or not applicable, all the way up to 8, the highest score.
0 to 8.
And these scores aren't just pulled out of thin air. They're based on very detailed definitions and criteria provided right there in the solicitation document.
So they have to justify the score they give themselves.
Absolutely. The government then takes that worksheet and validates each score against the evidence provided in the 3 parts of the proficiency demonstration we just discussed.
And if the government doesn't think the evidence backs up the score?
If a score can't be validated by the evidence, it gets zeroed out. Simple as that.
Wow. Okay, so that keeps everyone honest.
It does. And these validated scores directly feed into 2 key technical evaluation aspects. Technical excellence.
Which is?
How large they score in a specific proficiency area. Think deep expertise.
Okay.
And technical breadth, which is their cumulative score across all the relevant proficiency areas in that market segment. Think wider capability.
So depth and breadth are both measured. That's a neat distinction, like being a specialist versus a generalist.
That's a great way to put it. You could be a world-class expert in one narrow field, high technical excellence, or you could be competent across several related fields, good technical breadth. The government values both, but scores them distinctly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that covers how they demonstrate future capability. What about their track record? That leads us right into Volume 3, past performance. How does the government assess if an offeror has actually delivered successfully before?
Right. Volume 3, past performance. This is all about looking at the offeror's recent and relevant work history to gauge, how likely they are to succeed on this contract.
Recent and relevant. How do they define those?
Recent is pretty straightforward. The work must have occurred within the last 5 years from the solicitation's release date.
5 years.
Relevant has 2 dimensions. First, the scope of the work has to align with the proficiency areas and program areas defined in Omnibus IV. Did they do similar types of R&D? Second is the complexity. Was the subject matter similarly challenging? Did it involve similar management hurdles, maybe similar scale?
So it's not just did research, but did this kind of complex research.
Exactly. And this past work can be for anyone, federal government, state, local, even commercial clients, as long as it's recent and relevant.
And how does this work for teams, if you have subcontractors?
Good question. They look at the prime contractor's record in relation to the entire market segment they're proposing for. But for subcontractors or joint venture partners, the focus is narrower.
How so?
They look at the past performance specifically related to the work that sub or JV partner is actually proposed to do on the Omnibus V contract. It's tailored.
That makes sense. More targeted evaluation. How many references do they look at?
Offers can provide up to 3 references for the prime contractor's overall past performance, and then up to 3 references for each critical subcontractor or key team member.
Okay, so potentially quite a few references depending on the team structure.
It can be. And here's a fascinating detail about getting that feedback.
Oh.
The past performance questionnaires, the PPPQs that the references fill out, they cannot be submitted by the offeror in their proposal package.
Really? How do they get them then?
The references have to email the completed questionnaires directly to the government contracting office.
Bypassing the bidder entirely.
Exactly. It's a clear mechanism to try and ensure unbiased, direct feedback from the references.
That's a strong signal about wanting candid assessments. What about that organizational change history you mentioned earlier, the roadmap with unlimited pages?
Right. Companies also need to provide this history. basically a roadmap detailing any significant organizational changes over the past 5 years. Think mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, major reorganizations.
Why is that important for past performance?
It helps the government understand context. If Company A bought Company B 3 years ago, yes, down through satisfactory confidence, limited confidence, and no confidence.
What if a company is new or just hasn't done relevant work before?
That's where neutral confidence comes in. If there's simply no recent, relevant past performance record to evaluate, they get a neutral rating. And critically, this means it has no positive or negative impact on their overall evaluation. They aren't penalized for being new.
Okay, that seems fair. So we've covered the admin, the technical proof, the track record. Let's pivot to the business side. What about small businesses? And that big question, price.
Absolutely. Let's start with factor 3, the small business participation commitment. This is a really significant part of the evaluation. It's assessed simply as either acceptable or unacceptable. Pass-fail, essentially.
Acceptable or unacceptable, and what makes it acceptable?
It's about demonstrating a strong commitment to using small businesses. The Defense Health Agency, DHA, has set some pretty ambitious goals here.
What are the targets?
Overall, they're aiming for 32% of the total contract value to go to small businesses.
32%? That's quite high.
It is. And within that, there are specific targets for subcategories. 5% for small disadvantaged businesses, which includes HBCUs. 3% for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. 5% for women-owned small businesses. And 3% for hub-zone businesses.
So very specific goals across the board.
Very specific. And here's an interesting angle for small businesses bidding as primes. They can actually count the value of the work they perform themselves towards meeting these overall small business goals.
Oh, that helps them meet the targets significantly if they win as a prime.
Exactly. It's a clear incentive and acknowledges the role of small prime contractors.
Okay, that covers the small business piece. Now, price. Factor 4. For a contract this huge, potentially billions over its lifetime, you'd assume price is king, but you hinted otherwise earlier.
You're right to assume that normally, but here, it's surprisingly different.
Yeah.
Factor 4 price is not rated or scored in the traditional sense.
Not scored at all. How is it evaluated then?
It's evaluated purely for reasonableness and completeness. Does the price seem generally fair, and did they provide all the required pricing information? That's basically it.
But how do they even get a price if the work is indefinite? What are bidders actually pricing?
Here's the unique twist. Offers only submit a firm fixed price FFP proposal for one single thing. A hypothetical full-time equivalent project manager the third.
Just one hypothetical person.
Just one. And the scenario is incredibly specific. This hypothetical PM third is assumed to be based in San Francisco, California.
High-cost area.
Exactly.
Well,
Working at the offeror's own facility, not the government's. They need a master's or PhD or a bachelor's plus 15 years of experience.
okay, senior level.
Definitely. At least 10 years experience in a relevant field, and they must have a project management professional PMP certification.
Wow.
And their duties are laid out in detail too. Project leadership, managing scope, schedule, budget, communications, ensuring regulatory compliance, the whole 9 yards.
So they price out this one very specific, highly qualified PM in a specific location. What's the point of that single price point?
That specific FFP labor rate they propose for this hypothetical PM3, it becomes a ceiling rate.
A ceiling for what?
It acts as the maximum rate the government will pay for any future firm fixed price task order under Omnibus III that requires a project manager third position matching those qualifications.
So it sets a benchmark for future high-level project management costs.
Precisely. It's a really clever way for the government to get some cost control and predictability on a key labor category across potentially hundreds of future projects without having to price out every possible job up front.
That is clever. So there's no actual requirement to have this PM third on staff just to win the main IDIQ contract?
Correct. It's purely a pricing exercise at the main contract award stage. The actual need for PMs comes later with specific task orders.
Fascinating. Okay, so if price isn't scored and technical, past performance, and small business are the main evaluation factors, how do they actually weigh these to make the final best value award decision? What's the hierarchy?
The solicitation is very clear on the hierarchy. Factor 1, technical, that proficiency demonstration we talked about, is the most important factor.
Okay, technical first.
Followed by factor 2, past performance. That's the second most important.
Technical, then past performance.
Then comes factor 3, small business participation commitment, which is pass-fail, but still factored in.
Right.
And here's the crucial statement. All other evaluation factors combined, meaning technical, past performance, and small business considered together, are significantly more important than factor 4, price.
Significantly more important than price. That really emphasizes capability over cost.
Absolutely. For this kind of critical R&D, they're prioritizing getting the best expertise and the most reliable performers, even if they aren't the absolute cheapest.
How many contracts are they planning to award based on this?
The government anticipates awarding approximately 80 contracts in total across the different market segments.
80? That's a lot of awardees.
It is, and they've set a goal that a minimum of 25% of those awards will be reserved specifically for small businesses.
A quarter set aside for small business.
At least. They also state they can award more or fewer than 80 contracts overall and might adjust the number of small business awards needed to meet their socioeconomic objectives. They even reserve the right to potentially award a contract to an offerer who scored slightly lower technically or had a higher price if that offerer fills a specific capability competition gap and still represents the best overall value to the government.
So there's some flexibility to ensure they get the right mix of capabilities, even if it means not strictly following the scores.
Exactly. It underscores that best value here is a complex calculation focused heavily on technical merit, experience, and strategic goals like small business inclusion, with price being a secondary reasonableness check.
That paints a really clear picture of the award strategy. Now, these contracts are long-term, right? You mentioned potentially up to 11 years.
That's right. Typically a 5-year base period with potentially a 5-year option period. Sometimes there's an extra extension possible too, so yeah, potentially over a decade.
Managing such a large pool of contractors, potentially 80 of them over such a long time, seems like a huge challenge. What mechanisms are built in to manage performance and maybe adapt the contractor pool over that decade?
That's a key point. And the contract includes some pretty innovative mechanisms for exactly that. Ramp-on and off-ramp procedures.
Ramp-on and off-ramp. Okay, what do those mean?
Ramp-on means the government explicitly reserves the right to add new contract holders after the initial awards are made.
So they can bring more companies in later?
Yes. They can issue new solicitations down the road if they feel they need more qualified contractors, maybe because technology has changed or some initial awardees aren't performing or they just want more competition. It keeps the pool fresh and sufficient.
That makes sense. Flexibility to add more players. What about the off-ramp? Sounds like the opposite.
It is. The off-ramp procedure gives the government the right to unilaterally remove non-performing contractors from the omnibus off-fee contract vehicle.
Remove them entirely? Under what circumstances?
Several triggers are mentioned. Obviously, if their contract term expires and isn't optioned, but also things like being debarred or suspended from government contracting.
Okay, standard stuff.
Right. But also, failure to meet specific performance standards outlined in the contract or on task orders, or having contractor-induced cost overruns, receiving unsatisfactory performance ratings.
So clear performance metrics tied to staying on the contract.
Yes. And interestingly, also potentially for not meeting their small business participation commitments within a certain margin. They mentioned staying within 5% of the overall goals.
Wow. So failing on small business goals could get a large prime kicked off.
It's listed as a potential reason for off-ramping, yes. It shows how seriously they take those commitments. This whole off-ramp mechanism allows for really dynamic management over the contract's long life. It ensures accountability.
That off-ramp really is striking. It feels much more active, more performance-driven than maybe some older, massive government contracts. How much of a difference do you think mechanisms like that make in practice over a decade?
I think it's a significant differentiator. It fundamentally changes the dynamic. It's not just win the contract and coast. It becomes a relationship based on continuous performance evaluation.
Keeps contractors on their toes.
It does. They know they need to maintain high standards, deliver on task orders, meet their small business promises throughout the entire period of performance. And for the government, it gives them real leverage. It ensures they aren't stuck with underperformers for years and years. They can adapt the pool to ensure they always have the best, most responsive partners available for critical military medical R&D needs. It definitely sets a high bar for accountability.
Well, that was quite the deep dive, really digging into the nuts and bolts of one specific but clearly very impactful government contract. It's amazing how much intricate planning and detailed requirements go into structuring something like this, something that will shape military medical research for potentially the next decade.
Absolutely. From those incredibly specific proposal formatting rules, the page limits, the self-scoring, all the way to the strategic focus on small business and building in that long-term flexibility with ramp on off ramp. It's clear these massive agreements are engineered for real precision and long-term adaptability.
So, thinking about this, what does it all mean for you listening in? Maybe consider how these incredibly detailed, multi-layered government requirements documents like this Omnibus or V solicitation don't just shape one company's bid strategy, they actually influence the entire ecosystem. They can direct the flow of billions of dollars, potentially accelerating certain types of research while maybe making others harder to fund through this channel. It's really a fascinating glimpse into that constant, delicate balance the government tries to strike, demanding rigid compliance and accountability on one hand, while still trying to foster the innovation and gather the best capabilities needed to solve truly critical challenges on the other. Something to think about.